Hey, welcome back. Joining us in the Football Diary podcast once again. Good to have you here. It's a bit of a somber mood between us at the minute because United obviously were thumped 4-2 by Leicester quite convincingly. And Wolves obviously were beating Villa 3-2. So me, Dave and Myles are kind of a little bit reluctant to dwell over the results, but that's where we're going to start this week because we like torturing ourselves. But I'm going to flip it and go with Myles first and talk about Leicester. Because I'm sure Dave's got plenty to say about the United situation, the United setup. But Myles, what did Leicester do right this time? And let's not try and focus anything on how United performed. Let's try and focus on what Brendan Rodgers did differently for this game and how it's changed from how they've performed so far this season. Because up to now, really, they've been quite inconsistent. So what was different for Leicester?
I think, to be honest, like you say, like you were waiting for a result like this from Leicester to kind of kickstart their season a little bit. And Rodgers just showed the class of manager he is in this match. I think their intensity was fantastic. I think that they knew how to exploit their opponent's weaknesses, and they did so really, really well. I think playing James Maddison has obviously got a lot of stick from some Leicester fans for a while, and there's been question over whether he should be in the team or not. And we kind of saw the best of his game in this area where he sort of managed to press against Man United's holding midfielders and bring that intensity at the top of the pitch, whilst also adding the kind of passing manoeuvrability that Leicester kind of relied on him for in the past. So I think that was really strong. Obviously, there's a bit of a change in system as well to accommodate, again, some injuries, but also the fact that Johnny Evans is back. It was fantastic to see him. I think that's going to add a lot of stability. But to be honest, the scoreline didn't really do justice to Leicester's performance at times. Nothing seemed to rattle them. Even when they went 1-0 down, they stuck to their plan. When Rashford scored, their response was absolutely rapid because they knew that they had to get a foothold in the game quickly to get a result. And obviously, we're talking about a United team that have just been on an incredible unbeaten run away from home. So Leicester managed to treat the game like they were almost the away team at times and thought, let United sit on the ball at times and we'll press them when we need to and exploit the weaknesses. And I think they did that fantastically. I think the main thing worth mentioning is we just saw the class of some of the Leicester players as well and why that team has got to where it is. Tielemans' goal is outstanding. Now, if you remember, I think it was against Everton, Dave will correct me if I'm wrong, that Bruno scored that lovely goal last season where he kind of loops the ball from just outside the box with the side foot over the keeper. Well, Tielemans was reminiscent of that, but even better in some ways because he hit it first time. The ball rolled across to him and he just knew exactly how to get that technique. And that was a lovely goal. And then for Vardy to get on the score sheet so quickly after Rashford had scored, for obviously Daka to get his first goal in the league as well, they were just up for it more than anything. And Rodgers has that ability to be not just a tactician who knows how to target certain teams, but also a motivator that he clearly got them up for the occasion in a way that United just weren't.
Yeah, I think the difference between the way City have played before and the way they played now, obviously Evans, like you said, was kind of central to that, wasn't he? But I think Rodgers even hinted at it in his post-game interviews. The lines between defence and midfield for United were just so open that Maddison being in that hole was such a game changer. And then even when they took him off, they brought Jose Perez on, who ended up getting 2 assists as well. So I think you definitely could see that kind of yawning gap in the midfield / defence area for United. But yeah, credit to Leicester. I think Rodgers saw where our weaknesses were, and there's plenty of them, to be fair, and exploited them quite masterfully. I don't think 4-2 was a flattering result at all for Leicester. But I'm going to go on to United now, Dave. So a lot's been said about Solskjaer as a coach, the setup. I mean, we looked at the lineup before the game, didn't we? And we said, you know what, that's a strong team. That's the strongest team we could probably put out. So what happened, Dave? Where did United lose the game?
I think we've got to remember, really, I like to say credit to Leicester, but, you know, arguably the one game against Leeds where we've actually looked like, you know, we've actually put in a decent performance. I can't actually remember any other performance this season where we've actually played really well as a unit. And before this game, it was 2 teams out of form. Leicester massively out of form, still below United in the table. And I expected us to lose. And, you know, it's getting to that point now where it's difficult to be optimistic and enthusiastic about this team, and it's ridiculous. It's completely ridiculous to think of because of the players that we actually have in this squad. And we're a team lacking confidence by the looks of things. And we're coming into crunch time now. Obviously in the Champions League, we've got Atalanta next, who are by no means pushovers, and Liverpool at the weekend. So the game itself, like you say, it was too easy. United made it too easy for Leicester, and again, it was a lot of collective errors as well as individual errors. You've got to question the decision to start Maguire for one, who looked completely, he wasn't himself. Clearly, he didn't look fit. Whether he's still injured or not is another thing. But again, those are the decisions that the manager needs to make. And, it's a big game. That was a really big game. I feel as though coming into this week, we needed a win to just kind of have a bit of confidence coming into this period now where it's a pivotal time for us. And you could say for Solskjaer as well.
Can I just say quick, though, with Maguire, you can say about he wasn't fit and what was Solskjaer's decision to pick him. You can't account for Maguire's decisions on the pitch either. It's not fitness that means that he doesn't take the ball past the pressing Leicester attacker. Yeah. That was a silly decision. Sometimes don't be Hollywood about it, rose at it. And if you feel like you haven't got to pass out, I don't know what he thought was going to happen there. He's not the quickest person. He's not the best dribbler of a football. So why he thought that he would get himself out of that situation, I have no idea. For the Daka goal, he is stood completely still and he watches the ball pass in front of him. He's got no clue an attacker is there. That's not fitness. That's mentality. That's where I worry what Solskjaer's doing, because how is his main marquee defender against his former club not up for that occasion more? He's captain. I thought it was shocking.
Yeah, I think the decision to include him was a bit of a surprise, I think, to United fans, to every fan, really. And I'm sure City were rubbing their hands with glee because they know what kind of mistakes he's got in him from their own time with him. But I just think it was a bit of a strange decision. And I think it's a mixture of, yes, the players weren't up for it. Some of them didn't seem like they were really pressing. I didn't see any pressing at all in the game. There was no kind of pressure on Leicester when they were bringing the ball out of defence. But how much of it is down to coaching as well, Dave, in your opinion?
I heard today, I don't know whether it's true or not, but United are ranked 17th in the league for pressing, which says a lot. And you can say, of course, a lot of it's down to the coaching. And, I feel as though almost Ronaldo coming back into the team is almost probably slightly imbalanced, is because we're very top heavy now. We've got obviously Ronaldo, in his best days at Real Madrid, used to press, from the front, and he's just not quite got the energy to do that anymore. We've obviously got, Sancho and Greenwood, Bruno, Pogba, Matic. Pogba and Bruno, for me, I don't actually think they can play together personally in that team as it is right now. It just seems like we're not sure enough at the back, and whether that can be corrected, with coaching and rectified, that's another question. But it seems like Solskjaer's not got the answer to that.
That's the next question I was going to ask, actually. Is it a case of one of those attacking players has got to give, Myles, in your opinion? Can they all fit in the team, or has he got to find some other solution?
No, it's Solskjaer. They can definitely fit in the team. To me, Pogba and Bruno are completely complementary if played in the right system with the right mentality. This whole thing about Ronaldo not pressing, Dave's 100% right. He hasn't done enough of that. And we saw that last season at Juventus as well. Now, I would argue that Ronaldo is perfectly capable of doing that. People keep talking like he's 45. On his last legs, he's put on a crazy amount of weight and he's got no energy. I'm sorry. We all know what kind of physical specimen Ronaldo is. The right coach, the right mentality, and the right attitude towards things. Ronaldo presses for your team and is capable of doing it. We're not talking about a typical 36, 37-year-old. people say it all the time. He's got the physique of a 29-year-old, and I think he's probably got the capability of one too. But again, you're not going to get Pogba giving his all on the pitch under a manager like Solskjaer. You're going to get complacency and nerves from your defence under a manager like Solskjaer because there's no system. Solskjaer doesn't have a plan. His plan is we'll try and counter teams. As soon as he's allowed the ball, they panic. They've got no strategy. And for me, Solskjaer has become a sounding board, basically. And it's just a case of he's there to be put in front of the press, to shout out a load of old slogans for the company and to get United's name out there and put a smile on it. But fundamentally, he is covering up what is completely wrong with that club and the lack of strategy they have. You bring in Ronaldo because it's an opportunist commercial move. You bring in Sancho and you don't have a system that suits him and you don't play him in the system. So what's Solskjaer there for? Because he's not making players better, other than a couple of them you might argue where you wonder whether that's not just because he's there, it's just because Mourinho's not, like Luke Shaw. He's not making anyone better. He's clearly not making the signings. He hasn't got a clue. He's not really got a system or a setup. It's time he's got to go, because you're going to waste a very talented squad, actually. If you give them the right tactician, you put Thomas Tuchel in charge of that team, for example, United are winning the league this year with the kind of capability they've got. Solskjaer's going to struggle to get in the top 4 at the moment.
Well, that's the thing. There's not a Thomas Tuchel available. So where do United go from here? It sounds like they've backed him already to go through this difficult run of games. But Dave, is he going to be the guy to see the season out with United? Where does he stand? Where does the club stand?
The thing is, we've revisited this scenario numerous times, and his 3 years at the club, it seems like he gets into a corner where I think surely, we can't go on much longer like this. And, he's kind of put a string of 3 or 4 games, 5 games together, goes on a little run, and it kind of gets swept under the carpet again. I mean, it gets to a point where surely it's just not good enough anymore. You can't, it's Manchester United.
Well, what do you want to see, Dave? Tell me what your solution would be. Because if we were to lose Solskjaer now and say, right, enough's enough, what next? Who's available that you think we could step in and actually make something out of this team?
There's 2 ready-made. You've got Conte available, who would shore up that defence, sort the mentality issue out. And all right, it might not be a long-term system because I know his tenures tend to be quite explosive. But my word, he would get a response out of them and kick them on while they've got Ronaldo. You've got to make the most of that. He would sort the defence out and let the midfield express itself. Or Zidane, who has managed Ronaldo really effectively before. And players would look up to him the same way they might look up to Solskjaer, but to an elevated level. But he's got a tactic in mind and got a plan. He knows Varane. He'd sort that defence out. It's obvious to me. Solskjaer won't get sacked because he's too convenient for the board. And as long as they get top 4, they don't care.
So you're thinking Conte or Zidane, Dave? Conte or Zidane for you? Do you think they could actually steady the ship at this stage of the season?
I think we're one of the worst coached teams in the Premier League.
It shows. It does.
It's Solskjaer. If he's staying, he needs help. He needs to employ a top class coach who can actually come into the club and get us to play well. Because all we've got at the minute is, people are calling us Mates FC United. Obviously you got Carrick in there, who's, was a brilliant player, but he's not had any real experience at a previous club. You obviously got Kieran McKenna. He's got a brilliant reputation as an academy coach, and he's got a lot of promise apparently. But again, he doesn't bring any wealth of experience with him. You've got obviously Mike Phelan. I don't really know what Phelan kind of does. He's obviously just really well known for being one of Fergie's assistants over the years. But even coaches, for instance, Fergie or, other coaches, if something isn't right or they feel like they need to change, that something isn't fixing. Fergie, for instance, obviously brought in Carlos Queiroz as one of his, coaches who, ran a lot of the sessions. There's René Meulensteen, obviously, a manager at Bolton Wanderers for a set period, but it was really a well-established coach. It was brilliant. It just seems as though Solskjaer's just too stubborn to make those decisions, that see that something quite clearly isn't right.
Do you think he's allowed to make the decisions? Honestly, to me, I don't think he runs the club. I don't think he does anything. He's not
The
a
thing
manager
is,
because he doesn't manage them. He's not a coach because he doesn't coach them. So what's his job title? What does he do?
the thing I don't understand is obviously it came out in the press. I can't remember if it was last week or the week before that apparently United were handing new contracts to Phelan, Carrick, and McKenna. So who's making that decision? You know, who's making those decisions? Because is Solskjaer got a has he got an argument in that? Is he kind of saying to the owners, all right, we need to,
I don't think he has many decisions to make at the club. I think he picks the team that goes out on the match day itself and literally hopes for the best. I think we've all said that.
We've even got Darren Fletcher as a technical director, whatever that is.
Bizarre.
I mean, I don't even really know kind of what his role is. Like you say, any of those coaches you've just named would be an improvement on what we've got because they would instantly bring the system, a direction.
100%.
There'll be an idea of what they want, and I feel like they would address demands from that team. I just feel like it doesn't feel like there's any clear demand to those players, and the players are going through the motions. They know there's no repercussions of losing games. He's happy, it just seems as though he's accepted dropping points, and the same comments are made every week. Oh, we're losing points where we shouldn't be, and he's even asking himself questions in the media. What do we need to do? Well, that's you're the one there to provide the answers of what you need to do to fix those issues. Obviously, you've got other coaches. Obviously, you've got Ten Hag at Ajax, who's a brilliant coach. There's plenty of coaches out there with talent and
right now, though it feels
even
like
more.
We've had this conversation before. All the Premier League managers right now, if all of them lost their jobs, which club would take Solskjaer? None of them would. Not one club in the Premier League would hire Solskjaer right now because he's not a club legend. So if he's not as good as the other 19 teams in the Premier League and you're at Man United, that's nuts to me.
It's the same situation as Chelsea were in with Lampard, exactly the same. But they recognised that Lampard wasn't fit to take that group of players any further. And look what happened. They employed Tuchel.
I think Lampard was a better coach, though.
Slightly, but I still think he was out of his depth, and they recognised it. But the difference a quality coach can make, won them the Champions League. I'm not saying that would be the case with United, but they'd certainly be competing for the title and actually putting up a fight.
We all know what's going to happen, that you'll lose to Atalanta midweek, and then you'll beat Liverpool somehow with like a weird 1-0 win where Rashford bags a goal, and it will save Solskjaer for another month. Because how often have you seen that cycle? You go on a bad run, 3 games, people start talking, oh, he's bad, and then he pulls one result out of the bag. He seems to be good at getting that one result when his job's on the line. So somehow, even though Liverpool are the best team in the league right now, probably, United will beat them at the weekend, and it will be, okay, everything's fine in the press for a while. Honestly, I know it's ridiculous, Dave. I know it is, but you've seen it happen, innit?
I know it's that's that kind of false hope that kills United fans, though, because we do have some good results sometimes, and you think things are going well, and the players will click occasionally. Like you said, Pogba and Fernandes have played well together in the past, quite spectacularly at times.
The thing is, how easy it's been to get at our back four, cut through us with ease. Liverpool, they will have plenty of chances. Plenty of chances. So.
Well, I don't want to dwell on United too much. One thing I do want to ask you both is, if it was a lineup issue, what is Solskjaer getting wrong? Is it as simple as a lineup issue as having a central defensive midfielder still? Or are we talking cohesion of the front has been completely changed with Ronaldo? Because I was always under the assumption that it was meant to be Sancho, Rashford and Greenwood, and that was the 3. But Ronaldo in the mix kind of changes that completely. So, Myles, what's your take on the lineup?
I think he needs to be a bit more flexible with his system. At times, look at whether his players actually suit playing the way that he's trying to play. If you don't have a holding midfielder of that quality, move to a back 3 instead and cover your defence in that way. I think that would probably suit a lot of your defenders even more too. And then you'd also be able to partner someone up front with Ronaldo to do his running for him. I think that might be a good option. It means that then you struggle to locate players like Sancho, but he doesn't look on the best of form right now. Villa have done it. Perfect example. They've got Ings and Watkins right now. So they've moved to a back three, accommodate a partnership up front, and it's working better for him as a system. You struggle with Wan-Bissaka in that system a little bit, I think, because his attacking capabilities are a bit lower. But Solskjaer won't necessarily identify that or come up with that plan. And the fact you don't have a holding midfielder, well, it speaks for itself. You either sack that off and start playing Van der Beek there and let him have a go at playing the ball out from that sort of area and let him just do the running, or you can see the fact that we just need to attack so much that we'll go old school Kevin Keegan Newcastle. You might score 3, but we'll score 4. You won't be brave enough to do that, though.
No. Dave, what's your take on the setup in the first 11? What's missing?
Well, he's come out. There's been murmurs in the media today saying that Solskjaer's not happy because he didn't get a midfielder that he wanted in the transfer window. But he spent 40 million on a midfielder in Van der Beek, a year ago, and he's not played him. So
it's not his signing. I'll say it again. I don't think Van der Beek is Solskjaer's decision, and we've just kind of said I don't think he makes many decisions, especially transfer ones, at all. So he just doesn't rate him.
Well, it's the thing is he's obviously picked up Sancho in the summer. Who, I won't disagree. He's a great player, great talent, but is he what we needed more than probably a ball-winning midfielder, in the mould of a Save and Ndidi?
We needed both. That's the thing. We needed both. There was no way to get one or the other, and it still worked.
If the plan all along, which obviously wasn't to get Ronaldo, that's obviously the opportunity is, arisen, and we've taken that opportunity. We've now got a wealth of options. In the attacking areas, obviously we've got Rashford, we've still got Martial, we've got Ronaldo, we've got Sancho, we've got Greenwood, we've got Alanga coming through.
Cavani.
Who's a
Cavani, yeah.
Very good player. We've got Cavani. What is the plan? Well, there's not even players going out on loan. Players haven't gone out on loan to kind of, give these young players an opportunity. They're not going to get minutes here. It seems like we're just so top heavy, and then we've got these big gaping holes in midfield, and he doesn't know how to fix it. I don't agree that there isn't a way to fix it. I just feel like he's not capable of making those changes, those systematic changes, to get the best out of those players. I feel as though these players that are, playing at the moment, we know they're better players than how they're playing at the moment. Yeah. But he just can't get it from them, and it's going to be a case of waiting to see if he does.
That's the biggest problem. How long do the media and fans and people like us continue to have this conversation? Because let's be 100% honest, Solskjaer's not going anywhere. They're not going to sack him until he fails to qualify for a European competition. And that squad is good enough that even without a manager, they will qualify for a European competition. So are we just going to spend 20 minutes of this podcast every single week dissecting why Solskjaer isn't good enough for Man United? Because unfortunately, it feels like it's way higher up than that. That a decision needs to be made, but if we're real, it's not going to happen.
I think the only way it will happen is if the fans go in uproar again, and the attention turns to the Glazers instead of the man who's in charge, because that's not what they don't want. That they don't want the attention. They want the attention on the manager, or basically not on them.
And when the stock's full, that'd be the problem, won't it? If your stock falls, if you crash on the market,
I don't think they will have a choice. If the run that we go on is that bad that we start, sinking down the table, when even the likes of Arsenal and Tottenham are above us, I feel like their hands will be forced. But I just feel like it just kind of highlights how bad a decision it was to give him a new contract. It was. Why do you need to do that?
I think the best case scenario from my perspective, it's not going to happen, but I'm conflicted as a United fan because I love Solskjaer. I bloody love him. He's got a place in history, a place in every United fan's heart. So you don't really want to see him end the way we think it's going to end. I'd rather he just walked, just for dignity, for self-respect, and for the best of the club. I just wish he would just kind of right into the sunset and go like Kevin Keelan did for England back in the day. I'm just not good enough. It's time for somebody else to take over. I've took this team as far as I can personally take them. But he won't do it, will he?
Never going to do that, as he cares too much and he's got too much to prove.
Yeah. Anyway, I'm going to move on from United because we could talk about this for ages. And it is kind of rinse and repeat, but that does mean, Miles, that we're zooming in on Aston Villa 2, Wolverhampton Wanderers 3.
It's absolutely typical. I'm back for this one.
I mean, it's on paper, it looks like a great win for Wolves, and it is. And they've got some momentum now. But for Villa, for 80 minutes, they were playing so well. A couple of really good goals, cruise control. What the hell happened, mate?
Had this too many times so far this season. We had this against Chelsea as well, and we've had performances this season where we play fantastically and we haven't got the points, and that's all that's going to matter at the end of the season when we're trying to push for European places. It's very typical that I missed the week where we'd beaten United, not to go back in on United, but I'll come back and talk about 2 straight losses. No, do you know what? For the majority of the game, Villa were much the better side, other than the threat of Adama Traore kind of just breaking at pace. Villa dealt with Wolves really comfortably. And to be honest, you can allow Traore to attack you a little bit because he hasn't got any end product. So if he wants to beat 5 of our players, it's fine. You're pretty confident he's not going to do anything at the end of it. Villa looked in a really good place. It's a commanding lead to be 2-0 up. John McGinn is absolutely sensational at the moment, both for club and country. I love watching him play football. He cares. His effort is incredible. And his ability lately just seems to have gone up a gear again. And this is a player that we signed for 2 million. So really, really pleased to see him playing so well and to see Ings back on the score sheet. And then just, I think, a combination of fatigue, concentration, complacency, they all set in that last 10 minutes. Yeah. Now, it's frustrating because we had 2 players away on international duty in South America that played in the early hours of Friday morning and then played in this game as well in Emi Martinez and Douglas Luiz. And Luiz looked shattered, so had to come off, obviously. Playing Buendia for the first time in a long time from the start and playing him in central midfield or sort of behind the 2. Interesting to see whether he stays there. He played well at times, actually. He looked really threatening, but still kind of finding his feet in the team and his fitness. So you can see where that goes on. What disappoints me is all 3 goals came from set pieces. And we've got a set piece coach who's really helped us exploit other teams' weaknesses. Yet it was just pinball. They were all really unfortunate. The last one, it's a wild deflection. You can't account for that. But what you can account for is giving a free kick away in such a dangerous area in the 95th minute of a match when Ruben Neves is on the pitch. Jacob Ramsey just doesn't need to make that foul, but his inexperience got the better of him, and he put a rash challenge in, and all of a sudden you go away with not even a point. And to have 2 corners just pinball around the box and not have someone with the know-how to just get rid of it or position themselves and cover the back post properly, that's disappointing, I'm not going to lie. But I'm trying not to get too disheartened by it because we have had some good performances. We've had some good results. We just need something to click a little bit more just to keep that stability a little bit. And I think that our midfield, although McGinn is outstanding, Douglas Luiz has capabilities of being outstanding. He's not quite consistent enough. We haven't solved the 3 in the middle yet. We've changed this system to a back 5 and it's working really well for the fullbacks. It works well to get Ings and Watkins in there. But the midfield's not right. We haven't got the balance there yet. Now, maybe Morgan Sanson will bring that when he's fit again. Maybe it won't last because when Leon Bailey's fit, we'll change the system again. But something needs to change there. I don't know why Douglas Luiz starts this game and we don't see Nakamba, for example, because Luiz is just shattered. Yeah. So it's a hard one to explain, really, but it's just little things that we just need to work on through the season, to be honest.
Well, yeah, like you said, it's 2 defeats on the spin now for Villa, and Wolves on the flip side have won 3 in a row. So they've overtaken Villa in the table, I believe, and that looks positive for them. Are Wolves actually turning a corner, Dave, for you? Did they look like a team that deserved to be in a top 10 position? Because they started the season in a pretty weird way, didn't they?
Yeah, they actually started the season really well. In the grand scheme of things, they just couldn't score goals. I think they were probably a little bit fortunate to still be in the game when they were, because Villa played really well for the most part. up until that last 15, 20 minutes when it kind of, the screws just came loose. And I feel as though Wolves are a little bit better to watch than they were under Nuno. I feel as though the football that they play is a little bit more easy on the eye. They just seem to be. I always used to really dislike playing Wolves because it was just one of the most frustrating games to watch as a United sport. It just felt like it was, they'd sit back and, you know, absorb pressure. But it seems like they are actually, you know, trying to gain a bit more of a foothold in games. And to be honest, they've got the players for it. They have some really good technical players in there. So as a team, I'm interested to see how they do. I think if they could, you know, finish around mid-table, I think that'd be a good season for them. But it's almost as a club. I'm still trying to kind of see what they're trying to achieve, because it seems like they're kind of languishing, you know, around the same sort of area of the table. Most seasons, and you know, are the supporters, I suppose, happy enough with that?
I think they just wanted to see a change of the type of football they were playing. And I think, like you said, they've started to do that. And the only thing missing from their game at the start was putting the ball in the back of the net. But they're doing that now, albeit in quite a scrappy fashion against Villa, and pretty undeserved, to be honest, at the end of the day, because Villa outplayed them for the majority of the game. But they're finding a way. And I think that's a good sign for them. It's definitely a good sign for Bruno Lage as well, because people were looking at him as saying, is he really the same sort of level as Nuno Espirito Santo? And it turns out he's actually a pretty good attack-minded coach, isn't he?
I feel as though they've always been capable of scoring goals there. I just feel like it was the lack of the ambition, really, in sort of like, you know, the attacking areas of the pitch where we didn't see enough of it from them. And obviously they're still missing quite a few players that are still to come back into the team as well. So it'd be interesting to see once they've got a fully fit team for the first 11.
Yeah. Back to Villa then, Myles. What's the solution for the midfield? Because you talked about the midfield three in particular and which midfield three they have. So McGinn, Douglas Luiz obviously wasn't quite right. We're not quite ready for the game. Emi Buendia as well. Where does Leon Bailey fit in? What kind of expectations rather do you have for the formation for the next couple of games?
I have no idea. The honest answer is I have no idea, because the main thing that Smith has invested in over the summer was wide men, and now he's playing a system that doesn't feature them. Now, that is not a criticism. Absolutely love Dean Smith. He is comfortably the best manager I've seen at Villa in my lifetime, in my opinion. I think he's been fantastic. Turned the club around at a really difficult spot, and I trust him. And we're playing good football because he is a very good coach. There's still things to work on, definitely, but it's not a criticism of him. But I don't understand where the system goes next, because Leon Bailey cannot just be an impact player off the bench. We've seen players of that ilk do that before. There was a period where Traore didn't start any games for Wolves. He was their sub because it made such a difference to just completely change the game plan. And that's a wicked thing to have in your arsenal if you can do that. But I think with the midfield, I'll be surprised if Jacob Ramsey starts a lot more games. I'll be honest. I really like him. Nice lad. I'm sure he's got plenty of ability and promise. But right now, he's not sturdy enough for the league. He needs some time out on loan in the Championship, maybe. Sort himself out, solidify his place. I want to see more of Nakamba. I think Nakamba's ability to collect the ball in the middle and distribute it really suits Douglas Luiz and McGinn. Instead, what you do is you ask Douglas Luiz to do that role. Now, he can do that, but you nullify his main skills and attribute. He is an incredible passer of the ball, Douglas Luiz. You want him in higher areas of the pitch. You want him where he can take a shot from 35 yards because his technical ability is outstanding. I don't want him doing the doggies for everyone else. McGinn, for example, he's box to box. He will cover every blade of grass on that pitch. So take him out of the equation. What you want is someone to hold and someone to be able to be your playmaker. To me, Douglas Luiz is our playmaker, and I would love to see him do that. Or we see more of Morgan Sanson and see what he's actually capable of. It's unfortunate that he's had injuries since he came in, but Villa spent 16 million on him. So he's not someone that's going to just sit around and never play. He's a big player. It was in the Champions League when we signed him. So I do want to see what happens there. But as for how we end up then getting Leon Bailey and Buendia in, I ain't got a clue whether that's just certain games will cater certain systems or what. But I said at the time I was unsure of why we brought Tuanzebe in on loan and not bought him, because I thought it was weird to bring someone on loan that wouldn't play. Obviously, Smith knew he wants that back three.
Yeah.
So I don't know. That worries me a little bit, that you've bought two types of player for two different systems, but you can only play one. So I'm not sure.
Yeah. I'm just interested to see, is he going to persist with two up top? Because he's got Ings and Watkins, who are two fantastic players on their own, but together I've not really seen the best of them yet. And where Buendia fits behind them as well is a bit of a concern. I mean, can you get the three of them in the team?
Well, if he moves back to a back four, then the answer is you play Bailey on one side and you move Watkins out wide.
Yeah, that'd work.
At top. Now, Watkins then has the ability to cut inside and support Ings. He's also brilliant at pressing, so he'll press the fullback well. But then you lose one of the back three. And Smith seems really keen on being able to put the ball out from the back. Players like Tuanzebe who can dribble, Mings can play a pass. Conte has got the pace to cover the right-hand side and to allow Cash and Target the freedom of the flanks. So he's got options, which is really nice. But then it's a headache when you're trying to work out what the right one is, I'll be honest. But I trust Smith.
Yeah. Moving on to the title race as well, because Chelsea took their place back at the top of the table with the 1-0 win at Brentford. Quite a lucky one, really, because I think Brentford played pretty well. They were hard to beat, and it was Mendy in the end that sort of saved them, really, very literally. But they still go to the top. And obviously you got Man City with a routine 2-0 win at Burnley. So they seem to be doing what's expected of them. Liverpool have clicked onto another gear. And I think you sort of said earlier, they look like probably the most informed team in the league at the moment. Where has this come from? Are we surprised? And Mo Salah looks like he's on a different planet at the minute, Dave. So another amazing goal. And he seems to be sort of in contention for player of the season already, I think, doesn't he?
Yeah, he's he's definitely found his feet again. I think he had, by his standards, a little bit of an off season last year. He had a few quiet periods where he sort of just kind of stepped out of the limelight. But yeah, he's really pushed on this season. Obviously, scored a few important goals at that. But yeah, they were, they made easy work of Watford, really.
Some quality goals as well. Really good goals.
Some great football, paid to say it as a United fan, but it's kind of what you expected of Liverpool and the Jurgen Klopp team. And not the ideal start for obviously Claudio Ranieri either, but always a very difficult start when you're facing Liverpool. But they're definitely, it's going to be a tight one. The only thing I will say about Man City is they always do enough. It feels like they know when, they can just finish teams off, but they won't kind of expend all of their energy, completely annihilating teams. They'll score 2 or 3 goals and then know when enough's enough. Like against Liverpool were fortunate in that game. Man City were the better team, in my opinion. And we're a little bit unlucky with some of the decisions. I just feel as though Man City, they know how to get the job done.
Yeah,
I feel as though they probably might win the league, but I mean, it's going to be an intriguing battle. Through the season, Chelsea have looked a little bit, unstuck at times in the last few weeks. But again, I think Tuchel, he's made a couple of changes. Obviously, he's brought an extra midfielder in at times when they've obviously looked at, like, they started to concede goals, and they've kind of looks like he's instructed those front players to kind of do their thing and continue making those runs, because they can spring so quickly from defence to attack, Chelsea. And they've looked like they've kind of obviously had a little blip and they've kind of overcome that, and they're well up there again. So it'd be an intriguing race. I feel like it will be those 3 teams.
So you say you think City, was it City you said you think are looking like the team that could still kick on another gear? What about you, Miles, from what you've seen? I personally am quite surprised by how quickly Liverpool have kicked into gear in the last few games, especially. They've just annihilated a few teams along the way. And Salah looks amazing, doesn't he, at the minute? But who's your sort of favourites to watch, favourites for the title at this early stage of the season?
It's hard to say. I still think Chelsea will win it. I'll be honest. I think that they're going to be long-term the most organised and the team that will get the results. Now, Liverpool have got performances like this in their locker. We've known that for a long time. They were brilliant. And Salah obviously is being something else. Let's not forget, though, that Salah and Mane will go to the African Cup of Nations. So they'll be without them at a really important part of the season. We saw last season what one or two key injuries can do to that squad. And I feel like Chelsea have got more depth to deal with those sort of things than Liverpool do, for example. But I do think it's worth noting how good Liverpool have been so far.
Yeah.
They've drawn 3 games, so they can be got at, but they're still unbeaten. And Salah won the Puskas Award a couple of years ago for a very average goal, and he scored 2 goals better than that one in the last 2 weeks. So definite credit to him. I think, look behind the curtain, if you don't mind me saying, obviously a couple of weeks ago we were unable to record because the internet fell apart. We talked about that Man City game at length on our own or together as a collective regardless. And we all highlighted the same thing, that Liverpool were just getting by on certain decisions and things were working for them, and then relying on the moments of quality from the top end of the pitch. That will be consistent through the whole season. There's still areas in that team that you can get at. You can still try and exploit the fullbacks when they move forward. But when you have someone like Mo Salah at the other end, it's capital. And he's always going to be able to punish teams. And right now, the form he's in, there's been a lot of talk about, is he the best player in the world right now? Well, he moved through Watford for that goal like no one was there. He just seemed to, it was almost like it happened in slow motion for him, and he was able to just control the pace of everything while everyone else just let it happen to them. It was fantastic. So Liverpool are definitely impressive right now, but look like they might have some troubles in the season ahead. Whereas to me, Chelsea look efficient. And I think that's the difference. Sometimes efficiency is what's going to win you a title rather than style.
Yeah. I agree. I think for my money, Chelsea are still the number one team, the number one squad. And I think it also depends a bit on how deep into Europe these teams go as well, what kind of run they're going to have in the Champions League, how demanding that's going to be. But yeah, Chelsea for me, I think are the team for the long haul. I'm sticking with that decision that we made at the start of the season, and that's what I'm going with. But moving on quickly as well for you, Myles, we talked about Newcastle at great length last week on the pod. Wish you were here for that one to join the conversation, the debate. But just quickly, what are your thoughts? If you were in a position of Newcastle fans now, and that was Villa, how would you feel? Because there's so many conflicts there, isn't there?
Yeah, it's such a hard one. And I just want to qualify anything I say by it's not going to be every Newcastle fan that's to make this decision. And it's harsh that any Newcastle fans should have to take things into account like this. Because if it was happening to my club, I'd be incredibly conflicted and it would be so difficult. And already that's happened. I think the things that alarm me are the purity of football just completely disappearing. Now, the Premier League have made it very, very clear where their priorities are in this, because this was denied on the grounds of you can't be run by a sovereign state, when we've kind of already seen that with Man City as well in certain ways. You also can't have someone with such a poor human rights record leading a football club. Again, seen that with Man City already. What it really fell down to was the licensing issues that they have with the Premier League over in Saudi Arabia and Qatar. And as soon as that issue was resolved, all of a sudden, actually, it's not going to be run by the Saudi government or the royal family. Instead, what it's going to be is it's a public wealth fund, and it's going to be funded by loads of different people. And, you don't have to worry about that anymore. Let's be 100% honest. The Premier League don't care anymore, because they're not going to have to explain to BN Sport that they have to get rid of their licensing. That's all it is. That's all it comes down to fundamentally. Now, if I was a fan of that club, how would I deal with that? Who knows? Because it's disgusting. What is also disgusting, and I have to stand up for, is the treatment of Steve Bruce. Now, I'm a Villa fan. I've watched Steve Bruce at my club and at our rivals, just like Newcastle fans have. And at times, it's not the prettiest football in the world. And it's fine to sit and say, this manager is not capable of the job that he is in and should lose his job. We've just done it with Solskjaer. However, the attacks on Steve Bruce and the fact that it moves very quickly to personal attacks, calling him every name under the sun, is just so unnecessary. And actually, if you look at how hamstrung he's been by the setup at Newcastle, you can say they spent X amount of money. How much of that was Steve Bruce and how many of them were his signings? I'd argue Callum Wilson, that's a Steve Bruce player who was incredibly successful. Joe Willock, that seems like a Steve Bruce signing. Joel Linton isn't. Like, he's never making that signing.
No,
Steve Bruce has guided them to 2 seasons where they are safe in the Premier League. It's not been attractive. Some of it has been because there are other teams worse than them. And to be honest, on current form, he should probably not be in that job. You do not need to take it to the level of disrespect that it's moved to. For a man who is an incredible figure in the game, you're both United fans. I'm sure you can appreciate Steve Bruce as the player he was, but he's managed 1,000 games now. Now, I'm not being critical of just Newcastle fans, because I'm sure there are plenty of people who have the same. Villa fans threw a cabbage at him, for goodness sake, not long after he lost both his parents. It's disgusting. This poor man has been through a lot. And I actually listened to an interview this week with Alex Bruce talking about how it's been for his family. And you can tell he wants his dad to leave the job, not just because he'll get a big payoff, but because it's not nice for him. On a personal level, I've never seen a manager be under so much commentary about, well, you don't have a job next week, and for it to turn so nasty. So it's a hard situation to summarize with Newcastle right now. In one area, they're going to be really excited about the investment that's coming into the club and where that will take them. They'll be so relieved to get rid of Mike Ashley. But there is the negatives that come with it in terms of the treatment of not just Steve Bruce, but humans on a fundamental basis, the treatment of the game and the level of respect it shows to that. And that's hard to contest with. One more thing worth mentioning is this does not mean Newcastle all of a sudden are going to win the league next season. It is a process. Remember all the talk there was about QPR and how much money they had. Now, this is different. It is more money, and we've seen things work, but it's not easy. You have to get the strategy right first. You have to spend that money in the right areas. You have to get the right key figures involved. You have to stay in the Premier League, first of all, because right now Newcastle look like they're going down. And then also, it's not this stupid talk of let's get Kylian Mbappe. Like, it's never going to happen. Man City they built an infrastructure, they built their youth, and they also signed players like Barry and Milner and Lescott, who were going to bring Premier League experience and build from what they had currently. Newcastle don't really have a skeleton right now. In that team, you'd probably keep some Maximan, Callum Wilson, maybe Jamal Lascelles and Dubravka. Other than that, you have to refresh an entire squad. So we're talking about signing 20 players to kick them on. That takes a long time. And to me, I think Newcastle and the media are getting a little bit carried away with how simple this seems to be. And also, I wonder whether this is just another club that's going to be pushing for a Super League within 3 years. So it's a sad state of affairs. It takes away from the purity of the game. If you're a fan, to be honest, if it were me and it was Villa, I would still be a Villa fan. I'd still care about how they got on, but I'd be far more invested in England, for example, and just get on board with just football rather than this business behind it. It's gutting. Yeah.
I mean, you heard my views on the pod last week. I share pretty much everything you've said, really. But I'll just say, Miles, massive respect to you, really, for calling out the treatment to Steve Bruce, because I fully agree. It's not mentioned enough, I don't think, in the media. I think the media make him more than he needs to. It's pretty ugly to watch. And I think you calling it out is a great thing, really. So well done for that, mate, because he doesn't deserve it at all. 1,000 games in charge at top level football, deserves praise. And I think he deserves better than the treatment he's getting now. Absolutely.
Yeah.
But yeah, we'll wrap up there, I think, because Newcastle, again, we could talk about that for a long, long time, couldn't we?
We're going to be as well, unfortunately, aren't we?
I think so, yeah. I think, well, for context, Man City were taken over in 2008. They won their first trophy in 2011 or 2012. It was the FA Cup they won.
Yeah.
And that was 10 years ago, you know. It's not a quick process by any means. So if you can see Newcastle competing in 13 years' time and what kind of players we'll have around then, you know, so much changes in that space of time. And that's with City actually targeting a very slick operation from day one. And they, you know, recruited back behind the scenes for this kind of success. They kind of molded the whole backroom staff to have Guardiola eventually come in. Can Newcastle do that, really? And I think there's a few questions raised about the kind of draw of Newcastle and the history they have or haven't got to begin with as well. So, yeah, it's an interesting one.
The hardest part for us as just general football fans as well is keeping that realistic mindset on it when it comes to the January transfer window, for example. And football has massively shifted its culture towards this. We get really excited about the news on Twitter. Who's Fabrizio Romano tweeting about Newcastle signing today? And, Newcastle are about to spend 50 million. That's exciting. We will easily get carried away and forget it. When Man City was signing Grealish for 100 million, how many people talked about where that money came from? Because it's in the past now and we've moved past it. And that will slowly happen with Newcastle. It's not necessarily fair on Newcastle fans for them to get this different judgment when, all right, it was probably there at first with Man City, but it's slowly evaporated, even though circumstances are exactly the same. So I'm sure we'll all get sucked into, oh, is Philippe Coutinho going to sign for Newcastle or not in January? Is Koulibaly coming in? But it's important that we kind of at least keep one aspect of football with us of, can we just enjoy this as the game rather than the spectacle, and think about what actually motivates us to enjoy football and what unites us as football fans, because that's going to be a real challenge. Because I know I'll be guilty of it. It's basically like playing a game of Football Manager if you're Newcastle right now with a cheat code. So it's going to be exciting, let's be honest. But is that excitement genuine? That's the problem. It's a debate for all football fans.
Yeah, it creates a kind of hollowness, I think, if you're a fan of that team for any success that you have, because you kind of expect it really for that kind of investment, don't you? And I think I wrote a blog piece about when City smashed Watford 5-0 in the FA Cup final a few years back, and kind of it was a bit of a meh moment. Like, well, yeah, obviously. Like, did anyone expect anything different? So, and if PSG eventually win the Champions League, it's going to be another moment of, well, yeah, that's kind of par for the course when you spent that much money and sign Lionel Messi. So, yeah, Newcastle fans, good luck. I wish you well. There's no jealousy there, I don't think, from many fans at all. If anything, there's probably just a bit of concern for what the Premier League is becoming, especially. Yeah. And I think Dave mentioned it last time out. The Premier League is the new European Super League, isn't it, really, in some ways?
Oh, it's hypocrisy, though, because then at the same time, United and Spurs are forefronting this complaint about the integrity of the competition that they were trying to leave 5 minutes ago. So everyone's out for their own self-interest. So a lot of people don't have the right to complain about Newcastle, really. And if you're a fan, it's very easy to turn your nose up at Newcastle fans who are going to stick by the club right now. But all right, look into what your club's doing. I'm sure if you look deep enough into who's involved in Villa, there'd be things that I wouldn't be proud of, 100%. Because unfortunately, it's big business now. You talked about Man City beating Watford the other day. We didn't even get a chance to talk about what a joke they are as a club right now and why Ranieri would even bother going there. Like, football's a changing industry, and unfortunately, you've got to roll with those punches. It's just so sad that it seems that every time we've hit a new level of what we can finally tolerate and accept, something new comes in. And with this one, how do you tolerate it when it's so clearly commercially driven rather than actually respect for people, the fans of football, and the game that we all love? I could go on for ages. Sorry, mate.
Yeah, no, it's fine. Yeah, fair point.
For a few weeks. Sorry.
And like you said, no. I think there's no doubt we'll talk about Newcastle and where they fit into the landscape of football, the effect they have on the transfer market in January and beyond, really. So, yeah, we'll no doubt talk through that as and when it appears. But until then, we've got Champions League to look forward to this week, Europa League, and the Premier League's back next weekend. So hopefully you gents will be joining me the same time next week.
I probably won't be here next week, if I'm 100% honest. Getting married at the weekend, so
I don't know. How do you feel about that, Dave? Is that acceptable?
Well, I'll see you there at least, Mike. Dave.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, no, that's cool. Listen, mate, best of luck. Big week ahead for you. But Dave, I'll see you next week, hopefully. Thanks for watching the Football Diary podcast, and speak to you soon, guys. Cheers.
See ya.